Hi, and welcome back to Politodoxy. I'm your host, Aaron Friedman. Well, today I have a great pleasure to have a guest who left the Democrat Party, became independent, his own critical thinking skills. Now putting them to use. His name is Kevin Bass. I I saw he came out with a post saying that he left the Democrat Party, and it gained 1 million views. Let me see here. It gained around 1 million views, a lot of replies. People were interested in this. So also you had Brandon Strzok. You know who Brandon Strzok is?
I don't.
Oh, you got to get in touch with him. You got to get in touch with him. Now he deals with people who have left the Democrat Party, and he either gets people to leave the Democrat Party or talks with people who have already done so and gets them to speak at certain events, and just tries to help out. So I think that it would be very good for you to get in touch with him. I could get you in touch with him. He actually replied under that post saying that he would love for you to make a walkaway video, because he is the founder of the walkaway campaign that gets people to walk away from the Democrat Party. So he really would love for you to do a video. So I could get you guys in touch. Anyway, I would love to have this discussion with you. First of all, Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm at the association. I'm at the conference, the annual conference for the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, which is sort of like the alternative, more conservative version of the American Medical Association. And what I know is, if you look at the Wikipedia page for this organization, they're very derogatory and defamatory towards this organization, which means that it's a really good organization. If they say really bad things about it on Wikipedia, the organization is very good. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, Wikipedia is not a place somebody should go to look stuff up, unless you know how to use it. Sometimes it works, but unless you know how to use it, it just isn't worth it. Yeah. So you're now at a conference, as we discussed. So let's get into this. You walked away from the Democrat Party because of you had a breaking with them, seeing that they're now misrepresenting or disrepresenting their constituents. And one of the things that really broke the camel's back, so to speak, was that they didn't allow that much criticizing of COVID response and so on, which you came out and you criticized it, and for some reason that was unacceptable. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was a Democrat basically my entire life. In fact, I was on the far left. I used to be a Marxist even. I used to think communism was great. And, you know, progressively, as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little bit more moderate. I was at least center left, or maybe even a little bit more left wing than that, all the way through most of the pandemic. And then I started to realize that people were still saying absolutely crazy things about the pandemic, even as late as 2022. People were like, if just everybody just for a couple weeks wore masks, or we just locked down for a couple weeks, we get rid of this virus, which was absolutely crazy. And then I just started thinking, you know, maybe we got a number of things wrong about the pandemic, and I wrote about it. It was very controversial, unnecessarily, because the things that I wrote were very moderate. I was slandered and basically harassed for a year, and I just came to realize that the reason that we got so much about the pandemic wrong was because so much free speech was censored, and it turns out that a lot of uh, the way the current Democratic Party thinks about free speech is, they want to censor it. And really what they want to do is they want to censor the truth about a lot of things and call it misinformation because it's politically inexpedient. And I find that very offensive. A big reason I was a member of the Democratic Party is because I think they were at least for a while, they were the party of free speech. And they've done a 180 on that. And not only have they done a 180 on that, they're suppressing free speech in order to push bad policies. It's the worst of both worlds. So I think that the Republican Party is about better policies than the Democratic Party was, especially about COVID. But I think now it's woken me up to a number of things that are better, and they promote free speech that is promoting these better policies, and it's sort of melted my entire worldview, being basically harassed and essentially can't not essentially I was kicked out of med school it's changed my entire worldview, and it's made me significantly more conservative and oppositional to the Democratic Party, which I think has become a very terrible political organization.
Let me dig in a little bit into that. You criticized the COVID response, had some at the time controversial points about COVID. Did I would like to know about your I'm going to use this word, but that doesn't mean that anybody who doesn't have this means anything. What are your qualifications to be talking about this? Anybody, and of course, everybody has freedom of speech, or everybody has a right, but you have something else. It's not like you're just saying stuff. You post a lot about medical stuff, so I want to know what is your background in that field.
Yeah, so I've worked since I was in my late teenage years. I'm in my late 30s now, so I've worked for about 20 years in academia, mostly in science and in biological science. I was on a full scholarship for joint MD PhD degree, 2 degrees. So it's the medical degree and the doctorate in space of research and biological research. I focused mostly on sort of metabolism and biochemistry for my PhD, but during the entire PhD period, I became very well known for debunking misinformation in sort of the nutrition and health space. A lot of stuff about, there's a lot of controversy about different medical treatments that I would debunk misinformation on. I was known as being extremely meticulous. Most of the biggest accounts on what's called Med Twitter followed me, so most of the most famous sort of establishment-oriented accounts followed me. They respected what I did. I was extremely detailed and careful about how I did things. And so I took that scientific background. I was finishing my PhD at the time that I started criticizing the COVID policy. I took the scientific background, plus I took the sort of background in debunking misinformation, and I started applying it to the COVID policy. And that's sort of my background. And now I did to be fair, I had to learn very quickly about the sort of COVID space, the pandemic space. I had some very good teachers. One was Jay Bhattacharya, who's been a good mentor of mine, who's very important for writing the Great Barrington Declaration with Martin Kulldorff and Sunetra Gupta. And so I had to get up to speed. But essentially, I used my critical thinking skills, my literature evaluation skills, debunking misinformation. I just applied them to a different field, and that's how we did the COVID stuff.
All right. So you're somebody who's not just talking out of his ass here, or to put it bluntly, everybody has a right to do so. But I'm just saying that you're somebody who actually knew a thing or two about this subject, especially when it comes to the dietary things. So this is something that crosses my mind as I'm talking to you. That the COVID, I call it the scamdemic. It would not have been a pandemic, as they call it, if it weren't for our health in regards to eating food. Our food is basically more or less poisoned. Our bodies are more or less become. You see diabetes in children. You see all kinds of terrible things happening for young people who you never saw something like this before. So yeah, a virus of that kind of that sort is going to do a lot of damage. But if you had a well-adjusted population in terms of dietary what's the word I'm looking for here?
Yeah. So I want to address 2 points there. The first thing is that a lot of the misinformation that was pushed by the government and by the media is very similar and makes the same basic kinds of errors as the kinds of misinformation pushed by many diet gurus. This is the most shocking thing because they're very elementary and stupid ways of reading the literature and thinking about science, and they're ways that basically people like quacks that push many diet books use to push their diet books, and that's just very embarrassing. The second thing is with regard to what you're saying about people's health. Essentially, we have a very obese and sedentary population. That predisposes us to not only heart disease, diabetes, etc., but it makes us much less resilient in the face of infectious diseases like COVID. So if you have a much healthier, much less obese population, the death rate would have been dramatically lower, maybe about 3 times, maybe about as many as 4 times lower. We saw that if you look at, say, the Scandinavian countries like Sweden, which had essentially almost just the tiniest blip of excess mortality. the year after the COVID pandemic ended, or I think maybe as early as maybe 2022, were already hitting their highest life expectancies that they'd ever hit. It barely affected Sweden, and that's because they had such good baseline health, such good diets, and they weren't as obese as Americans are. We were one of the most unhealthy countries in the developed world, and that was a big reason why the pandemic went so wrong. And one of the sort of counterintuitive things, or one of the things that doesn't make very much sense, is we focus so much on vaccines and on medical therapies, but if we just got our country's health better, that would make a far bigger impact than any sort of medical therapy. We'd be far better prepared for any pandemic that could come for us if we just got a little bit healthier. And I think that kind of addresses the point that you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. That addresses the point very much, and brings me on to going back to why you left the Democratic Party. In part, this is like one of the reasons, like the criticizing of COVID that is not allowed, the health problems, and furthermore the policies. But I'm now gonna go back to what we were discussing earlier, that you're leaving the Democratic Party about policies. Now what you see is also Kennedy Jr. leaving the Democratic Party and joining the Trump team. And what now the Trump people are saying, that we want to put him in charge. And when I say Trump people, I mean people such as myself and people who are just, just generally the general people, just general. I'm not talking about only the campaign. I'm talking about general people. They wanted to see him at head of FDA, because this is somebody who actually, look, when it comes to Democrats or to former Democrats, there is a trust issue, okay, that it just exists. Because if you have somebody who is now suddenly joins the team, you're like, okay, does he really mean it? Anyway, we don't really know, but you're welcome. But if you're going to join the team, and you are going to take a position, what is the most bipartisan position we can give you? And I think FDA, it sounds like an awesome place. This guy, he has the record to back it up. He's not just, he knows a thing or two about health. So this is what the Trump people, such as myself, want to see. We want to have a healthy America where just everybody just healthy. Can we just get that? So we want to have John F. Kennedy Jr. in the FDA, because it could be bipartisan, it's non-political, and it is a perfect fit for him. This is something that, like, the dream for everybody. Everybody wants to have, on the Trump side, everybody wants to have a healthy society. We want to have somebody who could actually initiate that and who could expose all these corporations for what they're really doing, putting in all the sugar, chemicals, and all the other things outlawed, because in Europe, you're not allowed to have these things, but only in the United States for some reason. So we love to see that. Now, when you see something like that, you see that Kennedy Jr., he just might become that. It might just happen. So when you see that and him leaving the Democrats, what do you see in terms of more people just switching sides? You have Tulsi Gabbard, you have other people. What do you see in terms of that? Do you think that you are more of an outlier, or is everybody so militarized in their trenches that, you're more of an outlier? You decided to go with Trump, and there's not much happening in the political realm regarding switching sides.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that have switched sides. I think there's been a huge realignment of the parties. I think the Democrats have abandoned the working class. They've abandoned free speech. They've abandoned. They've become the party of the elites. And I think that many people who cared about the working class, who cared about freedom, that's why we were a part of the Democratic Party. Many of those people have switched, especially because of COVID, to the Republican Party. And I think, RFK Jr. is one of them. I think many of the sort of old school Kennedy fans have tended to switch to the Republican Party, whereas a lot of the Bush people in the Republican Party are now wanting to vote for Kamala.
Yeah.
So I think there's been a realignment. I'm hoping that it results in maybe slightly better performance than the polls are saying right now. And then I think Trump has a really good chance of winning the election. And we could have some big changes. I think the Democratic Party, being the party of the elites, doesn't want things to change. It wants the big food, the big pharma. It wants the big established corporations to make a bunch of money. It doesn't want to shake things up and really do, we essentially need drastic changes in the policies of our country. the Democratic Party is not the ones to do it. But I think along with RFK Jr., Trump can make those changes, and I think that it's very exciting if we got Trump in power.
All right, but what do you make of the Dick Cheney and other such Republicans joining the Democrats? And I just want to make this joke before we continue that I saw this meme, Dicks for Harris, and it's basically a picture of Dick Cheney, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. That's good stuff. And I don't know why. And I know Democrats might get offended by that. I'm like, I don't care. It's funny. Come on, guys. We can have a little bit of humor. But what do you make of it? What do you make of the warmonger, the evil guy, Dick Cheney, Darth Vader himself, the guy from Halliburton, who the Democrats have been calling him the worst. They have been calling him evil Hitler. Now they're calling Trump, but they've been calling him Hitler for some time. Now suddenly, no, he's great. He's awesome. He's amazing. He's wonderful, beautiful, and all the other things. He looks like a twin copy of George Soros. So I would like to know, what do you make of this suddenly out of nowhere? Okay, you know what? I'm with Kamala Harris.
Well, as you point out, Dick Cheney used to be the most evil person in the Republican Party. I think, and he was responsible for the development of this surveillance state that ultimately ended up getting co-opted for surveillance and censorship during the COVID pandemic. So it really traces back to him. So it's very appropriate that he would join the Democratic Party in that regard. The thing that's strange is, or the thing that makes sense to me in a way, is I hated Dick Cheney whenever I was a Democrat, and now that he's switching parties, I'm switching the parties at the same time. So I'm being very consistent.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm being very consistent here, and I think that the Democrats have abandoned their principles completely. If they think it's good that Dick Cheney joined their side, they need to look deep inside themselves and figure out what they really stand for.
Yeah, it's so. This is okay. I know you're a former Democrat, so something when it comes to conservative circles, you'll have a lot of tough talk in the conservative circles of how Democrats are. They're retarded. They're this. They're that. Right. And then in Democrat circles, you'll have the same thing. Oh, conservatives are evil and all the other things. But here, as a conservative, always been one, and you coming over to not necessarily, maybe not even staying. You're independent now, right? Right. You're thinking on yourself. You're not necessarily a conservative. Am I right?
I'm a Trumper at this point. Yeah, I don't know if I'd call myself I think I may be a free speech conservative. Yes,
Okay, fair enough.
I will say the conservatives, the Republicans now are kind of the revolutionary party. So even though, I could call myself a conservative in sort of air quotes, that really does actually mean to make big changes, I think.
Yes. So here's what I want to say. So I'm going to run this by you. This is what I've been thinking, because all this time I've been calling Democrats retarded. Why? Because, and I'm not talking about every single Democrat. I'm talking about a specific type of Democrat. The Kamala voter that can't tell you why they're voting for Kamala Harris, or the Joe Biden voter that can't tell you why they're voting for Joe Biden. If you have like a Kennedy Democrat who they can tell you, I want to vote for Kennedy because this, that, and the other. Or a Jill Stein voter can tell you, I'm voting for Jill Stein, this, that, and the other. I'm voting for Cornel West, this, that, and the other. I'm voting for Trump, this, that, and the other. They can tell you, and they can formulate a coherent sentence, or give you like two or one, even just one reason. They can give you why they're going or doing something. They can explain themselves. They can explain their actions. The Kamala voters, generally speaking, can't tell you why they're voting for Kamala Harris. And at the best, what they can tell you is first black woman president. And I'm like, that is what does it even mean? So they can't actually tell you. So when it comes to them, I used to say they're retarded. They can't explain why they're doing something. But then I thought a little bit deeper on this, and this is what I want to get your reaction on. And tell me if as a Democrat, tell me if this is what you're seeing, or this may have been part of your thought process while you were a Democrat. I want to know this because I genuinely want to understand this. So this is what I've been thinking, that they're not really retarded. Although if you want to use that word, you can use that. They are actually children. They're children in adult form. And what do I mean by this? It's a very simple equation. Very simple. As you can see with children, I don't know if you've seen these videos of parents holding up their child and knocking their hand on something, creating a large boom sound. And then the parents react, oh my God, what happened? And the child starts crying. The child didn't happen. Nothing bad happened to the child. the parents hit themselves, but the child heard something and the child then reacts to, oh no, something happened, now I need to start crying. And then you have videos of children falling down, like, as children do. Small toddlers fall down, and the parents react, who fell down? Who fell down? And the child starts laughing because I fell down, because the child reacts the way the parent reacts to the child. So if the parent reacts in a negative light, the child will think, oh no, something happened, and start crying, even if the child isn't hurt, even if the child was unharmed or even touched. But if the parent reacts, even if the child is hurt, if the parent reacts in a positive thing, like you fell down, the child reacts, haha, I fell down, and starts laughing. Have you seen that?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Okay, so this is what I want to get to. Democrats don't really know what's racist. They have to be told that is racist. They can't formulate a normal logical explanation for why they think something is racist. They just hear from the upper echelons, this is racist. Okay, this is racist. That is brat. She is brat. They wait for instructions, such as the child waiting for instructions from the parent if they should cry or if they should laugh. Furthermore, this is what I see. Democrats, they throw temper tantrums very fast, childish behavior. They are highly emotional, same as children, highly trusting of authority, as children are and should be. It's a survival thing. Imagine if you give your child a cookie and your child is like, I don't know, it may be poisoned, I don't know. Like, you don't want a child to be distrusting of their parent, right? But this is exactly the dynamic between Democrats and authority. They're like, we just got to give up more. Kamala Harris says this thing. Okay, we're just going to blindly walk into this. Democrats say this thing. They're just blindly walk into this. Meanwhile, you see conservatives, every single time you see a conservative, they always question, even on the Trump side, you see all kinds of criticism lobbed all the way, all the sides. So what you see here is what seems to be children in human form. They're very emotional, quick to anger, quick to throw a temper tantrum, something doesn't go their way. They need to wait for a reaction from Big Daddy government or whatever parent they have. Furthermore, to drive my point home even more, I'm not sure if you saw this video of Kamala Harris hugging a woman that needed a hug for some reason. She needed a hug from a politician. Did you see that video? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is a thing that actually happened. And it was so cringe-inducing. Like, everything is going to be fine. Yeah, everything is going to be fine. I'm like, what are you doing? What the hell even is this? I would never hug Donald Trump. Never in my life will I hug Donald Trump. I'm not a child. I have no problem Donald Trump hugging there's this disabled kid that he just surprised on his birthday. I have no problem with him hugging a disabled kid. That's fine. That's perfectly fine, because they need that extra love. But if you're a grown woman, you don't need a politician to hug you. If you're a grown man, you don't need that to happen. But yet they need that. Democrats, they need the extra love. And I'm like, this all is childish. It's extremely childish. So you tell me, do I understand? Do I get in part liberal thinking? Because the sooner we start understanding what liberals are thinking and their thought process, or how to get to the conclusion that they get to, the better we can understand how to talk to them nicely, easily, in a, whatever way they prefer, to either become independent, self-sufficient, understanding. They don't need to be conservative. I just want you to think for yourself. That's all I'm asking. So you think I'm in the ballpark here, or am I completely misunderstanding or misrepresenting what liberal thought process is like?
I think there's something really substantial to what you're saying. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think the Democratic Party and liberals, it's like a cult. I think it's a cult. It's the same kind of cult thinking. You have the good guys and the bad guys. The bad guys are the conservatives and the Republicans. They're evil oppressors who, are bigoted, misogynistic, racist, all these other terrible words that you're going to use to label. On a playground. Right.
All these terrible words. Oh, he's a beanie. He's a this or that. He's a doo-doo. He's a poo-poo. It's the same joke. And then you ask him, can you articulate why I am racist? No idea. No, they can't. Listen, you could call me racist. Please explain yourself. Which, by the way, this is my favorite thing, because it's so irritating when liberals call you racist. Not because it's true, just because it's like, we've been through this. Just stop it. It's so lame. It's so old. It's so played over. So I'm like, yes, thanks for noticing. Or I'm like, flattery will get you nowhere. Or I like play into it, and their minds explode. It's so funny. But listen, if you're gonna call me that, you better know what you're talking about. I have no problem with people making crazy assertions, crazy opinions. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with saying something and then not being able to back it up and say why, what, how did you come to the conclusion. Even if you're wrong, you're allowed to be wrong. As this is, I'm gonna get your reaction to this. As Socrates said, when he was asked by Adeimantus why he holds his tongue, Adeimantus said that, Socrates answered him, I hold my tongue. Why? Are you afraid? Adeimantus asks him, are you afraid that you might say something foolish? He answers, no, I'm not afraid to say something foolish. I'm afraid of obfuscating the truth. That's when I hold my tongue, I'm afraid of saying something that is untruthful. But other than that, I'm not afraid of saying something foolish because these are the things as I see it as facts or my opinion. I'm going to present it out there to the world, and then you can debunk it, and I'll get smarter if I am not, if I'm not right. But when it comes to Democrats, you don't see it as you have seen it firsthand with the COVID stuff. You had some opinions, you had some stuff, you had some things put out there, and you're like, no, you're not allowed to talk about it. Listen, if what I'm saying is retarded, then just prove what I'm saying is retarded, right? Just prove it. No, we're not even going to do that. Oh, okay, so you don't really have an argument. That's basically what it seems like. Let me hear what you have to say to this.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. They call names, and they've basically taken these words like racist, misogynist, whatever, white supremacist. They've taken these words and they expand the definition so that it covers pretty much anybody that they don't like. They expand the definition so wide so that they can call all their opponents all these different names. And basically, the opponents that they're calling these names are the oppressors. And since they're in the Democratic Party, they're the oppressed, kind of like the children who Big Daddy Democrat is going to save. Big Daddy Biden, Big Mommy Kamala, who's going to hug us. She's going to save us from these evil oppressors that we've essentially invented as oppressors in our own mind by expanding the definitions of bad people, racist, whatever, so wide. And so that's what they've done. And so like that's the entire psychology of the Democratic Party. Since you create this good and evil dynamic where Republicans are evil because you're expanding
it's a comic version of good and evil. Like I can also say the Democratic Party is evil, and I will get to your. I'm sorry that I am interrupting. I just want to say this very small point that I can make that same argument, except I can back it up, such as slavery, Jim Crow, the handing over the atomic secrets to the Soviets, giving up the entire Eastern Europe to Stalin. Like I can tell you, being good friends with the Nazis up until it was unpopular. They won't tell you this in the history books, but the Democrats were they invited I don't know if they invited, but they let Nazi warships dock in New York because they were trying to get themselves good with Hitler. That's something that they won't tell you, but I can tell you. I can say, okay, this is villainous, and I can explain myself. But their type of villainous is basically just comic book villainous. Like this is good, this is evil, black or white. There's no way between. There's no nuance to anything. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, there's no. It's not about facts. It's about identity, right? And so if you have the wrong kind of identity, then you're an evil oppressor. If you have the right kind of identity, you're a good guy or you're oppressed. And so they don't have to think logically or rationally. They just think by calling names and by drawing these lines of good and evil that are basically black and white. And so they don't have to have a conversation. They have the dumbest political messaging, which is like basically we want to vote for Kamala Harris because she's a black woman, and that's literally the reason, and because of joy, right? Joy and black woman, and like that's literally that's literally their messaging. So of course it's childish. It's a childish way of looking at the world, and it's engineered. It's on purpose. The intellectuals in the Democratic Party created this worldview where everybody's divided into these good and evil categories, and the Democratic Party is saving these oppressed categories from the oppressor categories, and it ultimately ends up in name calling, bullying, lashing out, and this incredibly childish middle school, high school level of backstabby, defamatory politics that characterizes the Democratic Party. It's a really sad situation.
Yes. And for those who think that I'm being unfair, how about this? This is your own side speaking. We need you to be our mamala. Who said that again? I can't recall, but I know it's from your side. Look up the video. So, mamala. So that is literally asking, I want a parent. I want you to be my parent. Okay, okay. So I'm not. So if I'm off, I'm not that far off. I think I'm in the ballpark. They literally, if you literally say for a politician, I want you to be my daddy, or okay, dad's gonna be clipped, but I want you to be my mommy, or anything like that. You know that's gonna be. I'm not that far off. Maybe one thing or two you could like add on or subtract, but nonetheless, what I'm saying here is very much, very much true. So, which brings me to the next subject. That since you left the party, you felt like the party is not representing you. It's not representing you. My question is, what did the party do? I'm gonna ask this as blunt as possible. Okay, so what did the party ever do to you to make you think in the first place that this represents me?
I, I've been in the universities for, this is a personal answer, but I've been in the universities for a long time, and to me, the Democratic Party, the liberals, that's sort of the faction, the political faction of intellectuals and of science, right? That's what I was told. That's what we were led to believe, and so as a scientist and as an intellectual, I wanted to be on the side of the intellectuals and the scientists, and so that seemed reasonable to me. And then also maybe the side that cares about people who are oppressed, and that's kind of the narrative of the Democratic Party traditionally, maybe, and it makes less sense now, but that. So I wanted to be on the good guys' side, the nice people side, the scientist side, and that was the reason I was a Democrat.
So what you're saying, because I was not expecting that. I was expecting you to say working class, Teamsters, and all the other things. And why I'm bringing that up because the Teamsters now refuse to endorse. Because they're like, we're liberal and we're left, but not that far. So they're like, we can endorse Trump, but we cannot endorse Harris. Like, we're not going to endorse anybody. So, but this is like the normal talking point that the Democrats used to be working class and all the other things, which, by the way, I never actually bought. I never buy that argument, although I understand why people think that, but I never actually buy that argument. But nonetheless, not to say that the Republicans are any better. I'm just saying that the Democrats, I don't think they've ever been that type of party. But nonetheless, this is what people say. So what you're saying is, no, actually, it's quite the opposite, because it's geared towards more of the elite. And I'm not calling you an elitist or an elite, but you are in that circle with people who are professors, Ivy League people, high profile people, so you are, if not elite, close to them. You're like in their circles. It's geared toward those people who are on the track to become elite. And when I say elite, just, like high profile, that's what I mean. So on track to become elite, or who are already elite. So this is something I wasn't expecting you to say, that it's quite the opposite. Instead of it being they were working class, no, they're actually geared toward the elite. And this is what was my this is what pulled you towards them. Am I misrepresenting what you're saying?
Well, it's interesting. It's a little bit of both. So I wanted to be on the side of, again, the intellectuals, the scientists. I thought that was, the people who are well informed, that kind of thing. And yes, you're right, though. The reason that I was drawn away from the Democratic Party was because even though it's quote unquote on the side of the intellectuals and the scientists, it's clearly not on the side of the working class people, and I don't think it used to be that way. So I think you had to have both, right? You had to have both, and I decided to break off with. Essentially, I lost most of my friends in those circles, and I decided to break off because I think it's better to stick up for working class people than to care about being on the side of most scientists, especially if most scientists are lying, to put it bluntly.
Interesting, that because I was not expecting that. I want to reiterate, I was expecting you to say it's the working class that you were taught, but no, it's actually the opposite. This is what brought you closer because of their you know trying to make it better and make it more life more easier for the elite, which now brings me to something interesting on that part, because you also said that it's because you wanted to be on the good side, on the good guy's side. You wanted to, which everybody wants to be on the good guy's side. Everybody wants to be nice. Everybody wants to be polite. Everybody wants to be on that side. So what triggered in your mind saying that, oh, wait a minute, this is not the good side. Wait a minute, these are not good guys I'm talking to you. Wait a minute, these guys are either full of themselves, self-righteous bastards, or they just, they don't even know what they're up. They just don't know what they do. So what triggered you? Oh, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong side here.
Yeah, because I started seeing that the what was called the truth on my side was not actually the truth. And that, or at least there was another perspective on your guys' side, or I guess on our side now. There was another perspective that is at least as true and deserves being listened to. And yet, and this is during the pandemic, and yet the Democrats are saying it's misinformation, it's lies, it's people saying it for money, it's people saying it for no good reason. And I started to realize that's not true. It's not people saying it for no good reason. People during the pandemic had a really good reason for not liking many of the pandemic policies, like the lockdowns, the masks, the vaccine mandates. They had very good reasons, very reasonable perspectives, logical, consistent, coherent perspectives on why they didn't like those things. And yet those people were slandered as being ignorant. They were victims to right-wing misinformation coming from dark money or from grifters online, and that was all bullshit. That's a complete lie, and it made me so outraged to see ordinary people, working class people, people who didn't have nearly as much power as the people who are slandering them as ignorant. It made me so outraged to see them treated and spoke to in such a way.
Yeah. So that is the reason why you were like, okay, wait a minute. So you guys, you're not here to try to understand the pain that people in Middle America are going through. You're not here to try to understand the pain and try to either convince them that, oh, actually, you got to change your ways because this, that, and the other, and we're going to have a free discussion. I'm not going to force anything on you. We're going to discuss this. No, it's them saying, this is how it's going to go down. You're going to be forced to do this. You're a terrible person. You're a racist. You're this, that, and the other. You're going after Orange Hitler. So we're just going to do all these. We're just going to. Your opinion doesn't matter, which is actually something that I've come to. I've done actually quite the opposite, which I would love for you to watch. I made a 15-minute video on the immigration crisis, on which I say that I would love to, instead of deporting all illegals immediately, I want to put them into the Hamptons. I want to put them into Martha's Vineyard. I want to put them into there for 1 month. 1 month. They have to live in every single affluent, well-off, Democrat, high donor area. They have to live there for 1 month and no homes. And for some people, they're going to go into the hotels or motels, whatever. They're going to be in those areas. And the government will pay for it. Of course, the government will pay for it. This will be taxpayer money, of course. But this is the only way. The only way these Democrat voters or these elite people, they're finally going to start understanding the pain that America has gone through for 30 years of illegal immigrants going in and destroying their communities. You know what? These guys are so disconnected from normal America that they think that if you're not going to allow illegal immigrants into your community, or even legal immigrants, you're not going to allow them into your community, you're just an evil bastard. You're just evil, and we're going to call you racist. You know what? Your community has to be trashed. It has to be destroyed. It has to be dismantled by the same people you claim to love because you have sanctuary cities. Interesting that you don't allow them in to your sanctuary cities, such as Martha's Vineyard. They proclaim themselves, we're sanctuary. Yeah? How about you have just 50 illegal immigrants from Florida? As Ron DeSantis sent them. Just 50. They couldn't handle 50. They call themselves a sanctuary city. They couldn't handle 50 illegal immigrants. So how about this? 1 month, they're going to stay there. And yes, this in part for me personally, it is revenge because this is something that normal Americans had to go through, and you just laughed in their face. You just called them all nasty names. You didn't want to have anything. You didn't want to understand their pain. I think that a little bit of suffering, a little bit of pain going your way, so you start understanding, wait a minute, this is what America has gone through? Holy crap, I'm a terrible person. I gotta reform. I gotta change. This is the only way, because they're never gonna start understanding it. This is what this is what I just came out and said, and I thought that people are gonna be very upset about it, because we're not allowed to say these kinds of things. We're not allowed to say, wait a minute, the suffering should go the other way as well. This should be a two-way street. So I thought that a lot of people are gonna be upset. Actually, a lot of people are like, yes, this is actually a good idea. Instead of deporting them immediately, send them into nice hotels in the Hamptons, send them into nice hotels in Martha's Vineyard or wherever affluent neighborhood of Democrats there is with high donors. This is very important. The high donor areas, because they voted for this. They donated for this. Here's the fruits of your labor. May you take the fruits of your labor. I think this will be a very good thing to happen. But I'm glad to see that a lot of people actually like that idea. I'm sorry, I'm going off on my own thing. I'm here to interview you, so I want to get to you started out as a Marxist, as you claimed. You said that you started out as a Marxist. What's the journey? Give me a little bit of the journey. Like, what were the steps that you took becoming from Marxist to either liberal, moderate, and then to Trump?
I'll give a couple phases in a very summarized
Yes.
form. Let's see if I can do that. So
Yeah.
when I was younger, I had a lot of passion and I didn't want to be told what to do by my parents. And I read about the Marxists in different countries, especially in Latin America. I read Marx himself, and then I really thought there was something very romantic about sort of the working class throwing off its shackles. It was almost like it appealed to me because I was like throwing off the shackles of my parents, So it was my sort of rebellion against my parents. And then I graduated from university. I, of course, studied as an anthropology student. That was one of my degrees. I studied a lot of the Marxists and the neo-Marxist theorists. I was very idealistic about that. Then I went to, immediately after graduating, I went to Penn to do research at the University of Pennsylvania. It's one of the top universities in the country. And I learned there that basically Marxism was just a way for elites to signal and to advance in their careers. It wasn't really a very serious thing. They weren't really serious about helping the working class. They were really serious about signaling that they were a part of the group and that they cared. They had compassion for the downtrodden, but they didn't really have a coherent political understanding of things. They didn't really take politics seriously. They wrote a bunch of stuff that was nonsensical. And they really just cared about each other's approbation. They really cared about whether their friends would pat them on the back or not, their fellow elites. They didn't really care about whether they were actually doing anything productive. And that was very disenchanting to me. That really robbed me of a lot of my idealism. I started to see Marxism as sort of an elite ideology. That elites just used to signal that they're great. Going back to your point about immigrants in the Hamptons and at Martha's Vineyard, elites vote those policies in because they're nice ways to signal that I'm an elite that these policies won't affect. It's a luxury belief. These policies affect everybody else. They don't affect these people who call themselves Marxists. And in fact, these policies, these immigration policies are anti-working class. They're hostile to ordinary people in this country while pretending to be compassionate. That's the most remarkable thing. They're so harmful for not only the working class and the fabric of this country, but they claim to be altruistic. And that just destroyed some of my sort of Marxist idealism. I was still sort of a little bit post-Marxist or neo-Marxist. I really like this theorist called Foucault, who himself criticized the Marxists in many ways. But over time, I started to become a little bit more practical. Obama went into office. I was a really big Obama fan. But over time, I became a little bit more of a centrist because I started to realize that some conservative ideas were right. And some of these signals that came from these left-wing elites actually hurt the working class hurt society, and some of the ideas coming from the conservatives were actually good for society and good for the working class and good for ordinary people. And so I moved a little bit more to the center. As I said, I was about center left or maybe a little bit left of center left when COVID hit. And then once COVID hit and I saw all those lies, I was just, I abandoned the project altogether. I threw my hands up and I said, just, screw it. I'm done now. And so that's sort of been my journey.
Well, that is highly interesting. So the tipping point, that is the COVID, and for you, I think it's one of the most American stories that you could in your life, but you can see as one of the most American periods in your life. That's the word. That's what I was trying to say. Because what is the First Amendment? The First Amendment, freedom of speech, and as you say, what I'm getting here is that you became much more conservative, or at the very least more independent. That the moment they said your freedom of speech is restricted, then you're like, oh, wait, no. This is not what I signed up. I signed up for truth because we are part of a elite class. And when I say elite class, I mean humans do generally are hierarchies, and I don't have a problem with having an elite class as long as they don't oppress, the normal folk. If they're like an elite, and I say elite class just so I'm using that verbiage. I don't mean that they're worth more, that their lives are more important. I just mean that they contribute substantially more because of their brain power. Brain power is always more worth than brain is more worth than brawn, always, every time. Anyway, so you looked at. Wait a minute, we're going to be part of this elite class that will, help just the normal folk. We are here to help. And then you find out, wait a minute, this entire shtick has nothing to do with helping the normal folk. This entire shtick is just to act like parasites, take away from the normal folk, and enrich our own lives, and then call them evil and use self-righteousness as a weapon against just normal people. So this is what I'm getting. This is what I'm getting from your life story. And the moment they told you, no, freedom of speech, you can't have freedom of speech. Oh, no. We are here in the wrong, and you switched sides. So this, have I capitalized your story in a few words?
100%. That's a perfect characterization of it. And I'll just add to this. I'm going to go to war over this. I'm not going to put up with this.
I mean, that's what we want. I call myself a radical. People tell me, do not call yourself a radical. I'm like, first of all, you don't really know the meaning of that word. I'm not an extremist. I'm a radical. There's lots of difference there. But yes, I'm a radical. And if it weren't for the Democrats, I mean, I'd just be considered a normal guy with pretty mainstream ideas if it were like 50, 60, 80, not 80, but 70 years ago, 1950s. I'm more of like the 1950s type of conservative, more or less. So, call myself a radical now, but here's a very important thing, and I want you to know this, that when it comes to politics or it comes to agendas or whatever, radicals set the agenda and moderates uphold it. Every single time. Who are the ones who set the agenda on what we're doing right now? Well, the Saul Alinsky types, the radicals from the 1960s. The radicals always set the agenda. So whatever happens for 50 years from now, the moderates will say, this is the agenda, this is very important. But the radicals always set the agenda. So this is why I call myself a radical. I always want to set the agenda. And 50 years from now, when they will call me a radical, guess what? The moderates will be just as radical as me, except they will be called moderates only because of my agenda that I've set forth. And this is important. If you want to, I'm talking now to the audience, if you want to do something, you want to get out there, you want to do something, you better be not radicalize yourself or do radical things just for the sake of doing radical things. Don't be a radicalist, I guess, but just be a radical. Look for the most well-adjusted, well-meaningful ideas. Think it through, use your critical thinking skills, and try to look for ways to implement it. I mean, that's the only way you're going to be setting agendas. Otherwise, you're just going to be upholding the status quo, and there's not that much, you're not bringing that much to the table. Anyway, so this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I think you have a lot more to say. I know that, especially when it comes to medical stuff. I've seen you on your Twitter. You've been posting a lot of medical stuff. I want to get you in contact with Brandon Strzok. He would love to get in contact with you. Maybe he'll get you some speaking events at certain places where you could, share your story. I think it'll be a net benefit for everybody. So I'll get you in contact. This guy, you have a lot of interesting things on your Twitter, especially regarding medical things. So I'm sure a lot of people still want to follow you. They want to look. They want to know more about you. So What's your Twitter handle? Do you have a Facebook? Do you have anything else? Where else can people find you? Tell us if you have anything upcoming, anything interesting. Let us know right now.
So my Twitter handle is Kevin N Bass. It's KVINNBASS. That's 2 N's. My Twitter, it's okay. It's not that popular right now for some reason. It's got a bunch of followers. We've got a bunch of followers, but for whatever reason, it's not what's really popping off right now. My sub.
Yeah, I know it's the algorithm. It's the algorithm. I mean,
I don't understand.
Elon needs to do something.
I have like.
Just so you know, it has nothing to do with you and your account. It has everything to do with the algorithm. I hope they fix it because it's crap. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I don't understand what it is. I literally have like 130,000 followers, and I get like as many views as like somebody with 5,000. I don't understand what's going on. But I have
algorithm.
Yeah, but my Substack is actually doing much better. I'm like gaining like 1,000 followers a week, which is, it's like for whatever reason the Substack algorithm loves me, Twitter algorithm hates me. And so I'm popping off on Substack, and my Substack is called Forbidden Science. You should be able to find it pretty easily. Once you see the content, it's like very clearly my content. Yeah, and so like what's coming up for me right now? Right now, I'm trying to figure out how do I get back into medical school after my school kicked me out. There's some really nasty stuff that they're doing, that the legal people are doing, or I don't know who's doing this, but somebody's doing it, and I can't talk about exactly what that is, but not right now. But basically, I'm going to fight this, and I think I'm going to win. And if I lose, I'll tell the full story, and I'll win that way because the full story is so horrific that like anybody who thinks I'm telling the truth is going to be shocked by what happened to me during medical school. I think they went completely crazy, and whenever they kicked me out, I don't understand like how grown humans can behave the way they did, but they did that, and so I'm going to be fighting that for the next 6 months, year, maybe 5 years. We'll see how long it takes.
Whatever it's worth, I hope that you are successful, and I would also like to talk to you after the recording. Okay, so for those who want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at Aaron Politidoxy on Twitter, at politidoxy@gmail.com on email, or on Aaron Friedman on Instagram. Please like, share, subscribe, leave 5 stars. Everybody, do it, whatever it takes just to boost everything, okay? Just boosting the algorithm, okay? That's all you need to do. Whatever it takes. All right, thank you very much for listening to this episode, and remember, my fellow radicals, stay political.